Thanks very much to the PM and to Gladys Liu. Precision medicine is the future of medicine, and that's happening right here at the synchrotron, and it will be happening right next door at the cyclotron. But we can only do these things if you're able to pay for them, and I'm in the very privileged position that in this budget we were able to add $34 billion to health investment in Australia over the coming 4 years, and that came because we were able to get the response to COVID right, one of the highest vaccination rates in the world, one of the lowest rates of loss of life, and therefore one of the strongest economic recoveries. That led to the investment in health. That led to the 10-year Medical Research Future Fund plan. And all of this comes together in investments in projects such as the synchrotron and the cyclotron. Here, some of you may have heard of venetoclax. Our brilliant researchers helped do the underpinning science for venetoclax. Walter and Eliza Hall Institute then turned that into a reality. And in turn, that is now a medicine that's on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme, treating patients with conditions such as lymphoma and leukemia. The next stage of precision medicine, which is about identifying our genomics, stem cells, but is also about using nuclear medicine. And that next stage is the cyclotron. So with this $23 million under the Modern Manufacturing Initiative, the cyclotron, which GMS and Telix and Monash University are bringing together, will allow radioisotopes to be brought forward, and they can be used, these isotopes, for nuclear medicine to diagnose and to treat. So diagnosis and treatment. To put it very simply, it's a better, faster way to treat many different cancers and conditions such as kidney disease. We just saw one of the beamlines here at the synchrotron, and that beamline is about having the world's most powerful X-ray to help diagnose breast cancer earlier and therefore to treat it earlier and more effectively. Next door, the future is being created with the cyclotron to help provide nuclear medicine and treatment for people, for their cancers, for their kidney diseases, that will create jobs, but ultimately it's about saving lives and protecting lives. Thank you.
Now, particularly given we're at a scientific community establishment here, it is right for me to celebrate our scientific heroes first, as I have when I came, but I don't think you'd mind me in celebrating our female sporting heroes after having done that today, particularly with the Women's World Cup win, and so to Meg Lanning in particular, the whole team, I want to say congratulations. You've done a terrific job. You've done us proud. I've been in touch with Boris. The last few text messages I've been able to have with Boris on the cricket have been pretty good, I've got to say. Anyway, he always takes it in a good spirit. But I do want to congratulate Heather Knight for the great job they did with their team. It's always great having the old battles with the old enemy. They're out on the cricket pitch, and to see Meg and the girls take it home, congratulations. We're just so proud of you. Happy to take some questions. They'll be in mid-May. Remember last year, like 3 years ago, the election was on the 18th of May. And I've been very clear over the course of this term. I've always had it in my mind that we would serve out our term and then go back to the Australian people. And so after 3 years, then that's when you go back to the polls, and so there's nothing new about that. But let me say this about the next election campaign. You know, the Labor Party, and particularly the Leader of the Opposition, Leader of the Labor Party, Anthony Albanese, has been skating away there without a lot of scrutiny, without a lot of attention, sort of pretty happy to try and get an election as quickly as he can and try and avoid the scrutiny of an election campaign. Now, as you know, I stand before you all the time, and people can certainly throw plenty at me. But here I am, standing strong, standing tall, and this election campaign is an opportunity for the Australian public to scrutinise the alternative. Last week, Thursday night, he had the opportunity to lay out an alternative economic plan for the country. He didn't. The opposition, the Labor Party and the Greens, a blank page when it comes to economic policy. What does that mean for you? It means that if he hasn't, after all this time, told you what his economic plan is, then how can you trust a Labor Party that, when they were last in government, saw unemployment rise from 4.2% to 5.7%? Now, when I made this point to Anthony Albanese the other day, he said, "Oh, but you're forgetting the global financial crisis." Well, I don't know where he's been for the last couple of years. We have had to face an economic crisis 30 times worse than the global financial crisis that the Labor Party had to face, and we've got employment outcomes that are 50% better. That's what good economic management looks like. And when we've been put to the test with a crisis 30 times worse than the Labor Party faced, we have done 50% better when it comes to getting people in jobs, keeping their jobs, and ensuring they can come through these crises. Because if you can't run a strong economy, if you can't manage the national finances, then you can't ensure and guarantee the things you say you want to deliver in government. It all comes back to that. So this election campaign, there'll be plenty of opportunity for scrutiny, and I encourage people to look carefully at these things. You know, elections are serious things, as the Australian people know. They know it's not a reality show, it's not based on who they like or don't like. They know it's about the economy they will live in as a result of the decisions that are taken by their government. Our government has shown that we've been able to produce a stronger economy in the midst of the worst economic challenge and health crisis we've seen in 100 years on health and 70 years when it comes to the economy.
There's still a question mark over several Liberal candidates in New South Wales. What will you do if the court overturns your picks? And why should the public elect a party unable to govern itself?
Our party totally governs itself, and under our constitution we've selected the candidates, and I'm very pleased with the candidates we've been able to select, and I look forward to campaigning alongside them over the course of this election. This is why we go to elections every 3 years, because we have a strong plan that has been delivering. And I'm looking forward over the course of the election campaign about setting out very clearly how our plan has kept 700,000 Australians in work. All Australians remember JobKeeper because so many Australians' livelihoods depended on it during the pandemic. And it's the way we manage the economy that achieved that. And that same plan is now taking us forward into the future. We have the runs on the board when it comes to how to manage a strong economy. We have the runs on the board when it comes to managing Australia's national security. And as we get closer and closer to that election, Australians will be able to really measure up. Anthony Albanese wants to slide on in under the scrutiny. What's he hiding? Why doesn't he want to share his plans? He can't go to the election just pretending to be Kevin Rudd. A re-Rudd is not a solution to Australia's challenges. Our economic plan have proved the solution and will continue to prove the solution.
So you're confident the court will uphold the pre-selections in New South Wales?
Well, courts will make their decisions, and it's currently before the courts, so you wouldn't expect me to make any commentary about what the courts are determining. I've already answered the question.
Are you prepared to sign a statute without court order? Like you didn't with the party support.
Well, I've already utterly rejected those issues, and I dealt with them in some detail yesterday. But more importantly, leaders of the Lebanese community have made their own statements, and I think put that matter to rest.
Are you prepared to sign a statute without court order?
Well, that's the only reason you would be required to do one. But there's no court proceedings on any of those matters. I think I've been very clear. I absolutely reject that as malicious slurs. It is outrageous, absolutely outrageous. I've dealt with it time and again, and the leaders of the Lebanese community, I think, voices have spoken most significantly about this matter and just what's behind all this, and I think it's very clear.
7 days isolation for COVID close contacts. You previously said that's redundant. Is that still the case?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that being removed. I'm looking forward to that being removed. Well, ultimately, that's a decision for the Premier. We don't make those decisions at the Commonwealth level. It's premiers who decide, to shut cities down or open them up, not the Commonwealth government. It's premiers who decide whether to mandate vaccines or not mandate them. They're not decisions the Commonwealth government makes. I haven't seen those. Oh, well, I'm already on the record of looking forward to the day when we're able to move past those contact rules. I am aware of the medical advice, though, that has come as we've been going through this latest wave, and obviously premiers will be very sensitive to that and considering that very carefully. This budget does a number of important things. The first one it does is it ensures that the most significant turnaround this country has seen in its economy in 70 years is put straight to work to give people real cost of living relief. And we're already seeing it at the Bowser even now. As you move around Melbourne, I was in northern Tasmania yesterday, I've been in other parts of the country, and we are already seeing those lower fuel prices find their way to the Bowser, which means Australians are already receiving the benefits of a budget that was handed down less than a week ago. And I welcome that, and I thank the petroleum industry for passing through those savings so quickly. That will soon be followed up by much needed support for pensioners and others who receive those types of payments, $250 to support them in dealing with rising costs of living that has been caused by those fuel price increases. And then, of course, on the 1st of July, there will be the increased tax cuts that are there, tax rebates for people to keep more of their own money, $420 if you're earning up to $126,000, which enables you to deal with real cost of living pressures now. Now, the Labor Party, they sought to bag that last week. Now, they were for it and they were against it. And that's the problem with Labor. You never know what they're for because they're always against everything that they're for. And that's not how to run an economic policy. That's why people don't know what they stand for or what their economic plan is. But that was the first point. The second point was to invest heavily in our economic plan. And I've just announced today another further investment in that economic plan for the future through the cyclotron, building on the work here of the synchrotron. So we're not just building dams, we're not just building roads, we're not just building airports and rail links, we're building the scientific infrastructure that Australia needs to ensure that we have a sovereign manufacturing capability, an Australian manufacturing capability right here. The third point is that this budget guarantees the essential services that Australians rely on. And Greg, you might want to speak to some of the key health issues here. But you cannot make commitments in areas like health and mental health. You cannot put things on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme like Labor failed to do because they couldn't run a strong economy last time. When Labor was last in power, they could not list medicines on the pharmaceutical benefit scheme because they ran out of money and they didn't know how to run a budget. That means people were being denied life-saving and life-changing medicines. That's what having a good budget and a strong economy is all about. And so then, of course, there's the investments we make in our defence and our security. And the almost $10 billion we've invested in Red Spice, the project to enhance our cyber security defences and offences. The first shot fired in any conflict that Australia might be involved in won't be in a metal casing. It'll be in bits and bytes. And that's why we've massively ramped up over these last years we've been in government, our investments in cyber defence and cyber offence, and this takes it to a whole nother level. But Greg, did you want to talk about health?
Just very briefly, to build on what we said earlier, there was $34 billion of additional health expenditure, and that's across primary care, hospitals, mental health, medical research to support our amazing scientists and aged care, $7 billion in Medicare, $10 billion in hospitals, additional funding, $10 billion in aged care. But in many ways, the easiest thing to understand is the new medicines. So on budget night, there were $2.4 billion of new medicines that were listed. And if you want to understand the difference between the current government and our approach to funding and to health and the alternative under Mr Albanese, they stopped listing new medicines. I'll give you an example. Symbicort for asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. On budget night, the Treasurer listed Trikafta for another respiratory condition, cystic fibrosis. 1,900 patients, over $200,000 savings per annum, and it changes their lives, it saves their lives, and that's the difference in approach.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everyone. Great to have you here. And can I thank all of our researchers? You're doing a fantastic job.